Welcome back to Open Window Politics. Today we're going to be doing a prediction between the current governor of Kentucky, interestingly enough, on the Democratic side, versus the current vice president and at the moment most likely frontrunner for the 2028 Republican presidential nomination, that being the current vice president, J.D. Vance. So Vance was, formerly an author, later senator from Ohio, and then he was later picked as Trump's running mate. And then, of course, Trump won in 2024, so he is now vice president. He has rose to fame, and at the moment, it looks like he's the most likely contender for the 2028 Republican Party's primary. We're still quite a ways out before the 2028 election and the primary, so a lot could change, but for now, we're just going to be going with this hypothetical prediction. And then the Democrat, Andy Beshear, current Democratic governor of Kentucky. As you can see, that is a safe red state with 8 electoral college votes. So it is very impressive that he was able to win as a Democrat in a safe red state. He's definitely got a bipartisan appeal that I think will serve him well throughout the swing states. We'll start out with the state of Nevada. In Nevada, I'm going to go with the tilt blue rating. I think that I might even be willing to do lean, but Andy Beshear, he has proven he can win in a deep red state, and I think that it would be even easier, especially with the current environment definitely supporting Democrats at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what happens during the 2026 midterms. That will, of course, give us an idea on which way the country is leaning, including the state of Nevada. But for now, I'm going to put it into Andy Beshear's column. So that's going to be 6 electoral college votes for him. And then as far as Arizona goes, Arizona I've gone back and forth on. I think if I were to call it today, it would probably end up in Andy Beshear's column for many of the same reasons I listed for Nevada. He's just tries to portray himself as more of a bipartisan problem solver. And he's clearly at least had some success in that by being elected Democratic governor of Kentucky. And I think that would appeal kind of similar to a Biden appeal, just trying to appeal to the middle. And Biden, of course, was able to win Nevada and Arizona. It's definitely a different environment. It would be a different environment in 2028. We still have so many variables that haven't yet been figured out. But if I were to call it, it would probably result in those 2 states going to Andy Beshear. And then we have the district here in Nebraska. This was normally in the tilt, but I decided to put it into the lean blue rating. This district even went to Harris in 2024, and that was definitely not a good election year for Democrats. So it isn't too out of the usual that this district would go to Andy Beshear by a more significant margin. So that is going to be the district there in Omaha. 1 more electoral college vote for Andy Beshear. And then we'll get to North Carolina and Georgia. I'm going to start out with North Carolina. I think North Carolina, it's got a real good chance of going blue, especially if Andy Beshear were to be the nominee. It would also be interesting to see who Andy Beshear and J.D. Vance pick as their running mates, because that will probably have a factor to play. But that's going to be 16 electoral college votes for J.D. Vance, the first swing of the core 7 swing states he wins. And Georgia, I feel, would most likely end up in the Democratic Party's column. Ultimately, this is just a prediction, so I don't know for certain, but still, if I were to call it between these 2 candidates in the election royale today, I would probably go with Georgia in the tilt blue rating. And that leaves us with the 3 Rust Belt states. So J.D. Vance, of course, former senator from Ohio, so he has certainly got some Rust Belt appeal. Andy Beshear is, of course, from the state just right south of Ohio, Kentucky, and has also got some Rust Belt appeal that would be beneficial. So in many ways, that would kind of balance out that it would be both would be competitive in the swing states here in the Rust Belt. We'll start out with Wisconsin. I do think Wisconsin is going to be Democrats' best chance at winning one of the Rust Belt states in 2028. The state was close with Harris, and I would probably predict it would end up in the Democratic Party's column. And that brings us to 269 to 235. And in this case, I do think the Rust Belt will vote together. If I were to call it, I think Pennsylvania is probably J.D. Vance's best chance at winning a Rust Belt state. But even with Pennsylvania, we can do the prediction difference here. Even with Pennsylvania, let's fix New York. Even with Pennsylvania, Vance would still be at 254. So ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Vandy Bashir could even afford to lose Wisconsin as long as he just wins Michigan. So that is going to be the prediction. I will put the state of Pennsylvania back in the Democratic Party column. But yeah, so that ends us with 303 for the Democrat, Andy Bashir, to 235 for the Republican, J.D. Vance. Feel free to